Yeah. Well, so jumping back into the conversation a little bit, are there any, I don't know, exercises, habits, strategies? I mean, anything that you might recommend for us to maybe increase the amount of playfulness in our romantic life, in our relationships?
I actually got this from my own therapist. Shout out
Yeah.
to Jessica. I doubt she's here, but if she um, is that like, especially when I've had like a hard time with my partner. Um, Hello, Michael. I know you're listening. Um, like if we've had like a big fight, right? Like if we've had a week where we've just been really working in our own headspaces and not been like intentionally connecting with each other, of like having, a day where you're just having fun.
Hmm.
Like, you're not talking about the serious shit. You're not talking about your adult responsibilities. You're not talking about anything that's about like bringing seriousness into the time of like connection, unless you're like professing your deep dying love for each other. But like playing a game, like we played Battleship like on New Year's Eve last year, and it was so fun. Like, and it was just about having a good time. Um, or doing a puzzle together, or like going to an arcade, like something that's just about having fun and connection with your partner and increasing that playfulness with each other.
Mm.
Like watching something silly that you used to watch as a kid. Like we watched a Goofy movie recently together, and so
Holds up.
fun.
Yeah.
Holds up. Eye to Eye is it?
Still a bop.
Oh my god, it's like top 5 songs. It's so good. It might be on my Spotify Wrapped because I can't stop listening to it.
Yeah.
Like find it. I also encourage like a lot of my clients like to find at least like 5 minutes like in your day where you intentionally connect with your partner.
Mm.
Like whether that's during lunch break, or a lot of times I say like it's good to like while you're lying in bed at night, like not on your phones, like just intentionally asking like, hey, like how was your day, or telling like a funny story or something that like you're just connecting with each other. Because
Mm.
I think like our lives can get so busy that we miss out on that, and like those connections can lead to like more playfulness.
Busy and action oriented. I mean, as a couples therapist, I feel like whenever I say something like what you just said about, make sure to take 5 minutes every day to just connect with each other, that I would almost have to follow it up with some sort of caveat and say that, like, and then when you connect with each other, you don't need to walk away feeling connected. There is no like
Mhm.
specific outcome that you have to achieve. This is a process oriented thing. Relationships are processes. And if we go into it, if we go into any of these sort of playful notions, trying to figure out like, well, how do I monetize it? How do I, achieve with it? How do I chalk one up on the board to show the validity of the thing? We're almost interrupting that process.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to look one way. And I think like something that I've discovered like in my current relationship, that like you're not always going to feel 100% connected to your partner. Like you're just not.
Yeah.
Like you're just not. Like I think we all grew up with this idea of like I always have to be in this like very loving, head over heels, my head up your ass feeling towards your
Sure.
partner. Like, and you're just not always going to feel that way.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And that doesn't say anything negative about your relationship. Like, I think it only becomes negative if you spend most of your time feeling that way. But if like 20-25% of the time you're not feeling connected, but the rest of the time that you are, like that's not something to always be worried about.
Yeah, Marshall Rosenberg of nonviolent communication fame talks a lot about how love is a complicated word because we use it to describe like an emotion and a sensation within our bodies, but our emotions are short-lived, right? Like
Mhm.
if the stimulus doesn't maintain itself, we tend to feel an emotion anywhere from like 3 to 90 seconds. You see a terrifying silhouette on the horizon, all of a sudden your heart starts racing and you freak out and you panic. And then if you notice, oh no, it's just a tree, it's just a lampstand, okay, everything immediately calms down. And the only time that we continue to experience that emotion in an ongoing way is if, we're being chased by the monster that we actually saw there. And when our partners aren't around, we still love them, but we're not necessarily going to have that like somatic experience within our bodies. And I think that because we don't do a good job of educating people around these things, because we don't
Mhm.
do a good job of talking about these things, and instead try and instill this, Disney movie fantasy of what true love actually means, a lot of people walk around feeling as if there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with their relationships. Instead of
Mhm.
trying to enjoy and build on what they have,
Mhm.
they start to panic about what they're missing out on.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that also is part of like, especially the difference in like dating culture now of like, we have these dating apps where it's like what's the next best thing that's out there? Like I'm with this person now, but what if there's somebody better out
Can I
there? Like
trade up?
yeah, can I trade up? Like is there somebody I'm going to have more of a connection with? Is there somebody I'm going to have more of this with? Like and sometimes but also sometimes it's like putting the work in like with the partner that you're already with.
Mhm.
Like and really taking stock and inventory of I think that's probably redundant stock and inventory. But for the most part, are you happy in your relationship? Like we all have parts of our that can be like tweaked and altered. But for the most part, is this like a happy place to be?
Mm.
I hope that like actually makes sense for what
No,
you were just saying.
no, fair to
Okay.
say. So, for folks who are maybe having that kind of aha moment, or are taking stock of their relationship or inventory of their sex life, are there any, books, podcasts, YouTubers, any other resources that you might point us towards?
Trying to think of like anything specific. Because I think it really just comes down to like what you're interested in. Like
Mm.
I recently went through a phase where I was watching a lot of dance moms. I love reality TV. I'm trash for it, and that's fine. I
Sure.
don't care.
Yeah.
But I found a Dance Moms podcast where two of the dance moms from Dance Moms were like rehashing the episodes. And let me tell you,
Dance momming on air.
oh my God, it's one of my favorite things in the entire universe. I love it. And like that's something that's a very niche to something that I love, and it's like a playful way of like engaging with the world because I know that it's dumb. I know that there's not like any like big part that this is going to play in my life, but it's just something that I enjoy.
Mm.
And I think that can be same thing with books. If you're like a reader of like I hate that the school system like picks books that like end up destroying like people's love for reading. Like I was lucky enough that I started loving books from a young age. So like I've continued that throughout my life. But I was reading A Tale of Two Cities in sophomore year. I didn't want to read that shit in college. Like that's not fun to read.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different things that you can engage with out there, especially when it comes to reading like erotica. There's so much weird shit out there. It's amazing. You can find people who are having sex with aliens or barbarians, or they're getting stranded on some planet. And like, there's like a whole book series about like all these people falling in love with aliens. Like,
I think
what?
people miss that from the outside. Like I was at Texas A&M when it came out that one of the students there had been very prolifically writing dinosaur erotica, and
Amazing.
everybody was freaking out about it, talking about how people obsessing over sex with dinosaurs, and to that I guess I would say, like, yeah, fuck off. People are allowed to want to have sex with dinosaurs. If that's your
Yeah.
fantasy, like whatever, it's a fantasy. That's fine. Let's allow that to breathe. But also, I think that the vast majority of people who were enjoying those books were, yeah, finding it kind of sexy and kinky and weird. But I think
Mhm.
also the goofiness, the bawdiness, the ridiculousness, the silliness, the playfulness of it
Yeah.
is a feature, not a bug. And I
Mhm.
really want to invite people to to laugh at the weird sounds that happen when they're having sex,
Mhm.
to, be willing to make jokes about their sex life and their sexuality, and not feel like everything needs to be so curated and Instagram worthy and,
Mhm.
filmable.
Yeah. And that can be a way of like having like playfulness and silliness in the bedroom is like, you will never believe the shit that I just read, babe. Let me read you a
Yeah.
chapter
Uh-huh.
from this book that I've been reading or listening to it together. Or I know that there's like a subreddit that's out there where people like submit their own scripts and they ask somebody else to read it in like a really sexy voice. Like there's so many different ways to like engage with stuff and like there's no wrong way.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the best resource for people is like just being curious and like what do I like? And like I don't care if other people agree with it or like it or cringe about it. What do I like? What turns me on? What makes me excited? And like how can I engage with that? Because unless you tell people, people probably aren't going to know unless you're blasting it on like your Instagram or your TikTok or whatever. Like you can keep that stuff secret. Like
Hmm.
that can be something that's just for you and your partner or partners if you
That
want.
intimacy is part of the value. I mean, I definitely encourage people to talk about their weird sex stuff on Instagram and or
Yeah.
TikTok or whatever else is cool these days. But yeah, that intimacy, that like silliness, that thing that no one else gets to see. I mean, I think the healthiest couples I know all have this sort of like secret weird language that they only speak to one another, and you're lucky as an outsider to get a glimpse of it, and it to me it only ever shows how valuable that intimacy is.
Hmm. Like that's the person or persons that like you get to share that stuff with. Like
Hmm.
this is a part of myself that like I don't show to everyone and like it's special because I can show it with you. Or you don't have to show it to anybody. Like
Yeah, I mean, it can be special with yourself, right? That's part of that relationship with yourself is important too.
yeah, like I love reading the like erotica that's like this is for like the most like effed up people and like this has been banned from whatever because I'm like okay now I'm curious,
Yeah.
is it really that bad?
Let's get weird.
Yeah, let's get weird. Not so much the alien barbarian stuff, but if that's your thing, I don't care. Like if that's what does it for you, that's cool.
Go and find it, sure.
And it's out there. I promise you anything that you can think of is out there.
It is out there.
It is.
Well, I mean, ultimately, do you have any other advice for people who are just trying to prioritize their health and their well-being? Maybe just a simple, perhaps not universal, but some place to get started?
I mean, like science shows that like people who experience higher level of stress like are prone to dying earlier. Existential dread. I
Hmm.
know. And that like decreasing your levels of stress like can help you live like a better and longer life. Um and like playfulness and silliness can be a part of that. And I think like especially if you're looking at like prioritizing like your health and your life and like what makes you happy is like again realizing that like we're all going to die someday. We're all going to kick the bucket.
Mm.
There's at some point that none of us are going to be there. Again, existential dread. And like this is a time to get to do the things that like we would that like we wouldn't
If not
normally.
now, when?
If not now, when? Like the only person that's like stopping you is you or I guess the government. I guess it depends on like what you're trying to do. Um and I think like prioritizing it because like it's important. Like I tell my
Mm-hmm.
client plenty of my clients this all the time. If like life is so short. Like it truly is. It is the hardest thing that we are going to do. And you have to find something in life that gives you joy, that has nothing to do with money, that has nothing to do with really pleasing other people. That's just something that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's where I've like kind of drawn a hard line with like the books that I read of like, I don't really read for work.
I hear
Like,
that.
I read books because I love reading them. Like,
I've actually had friends in my life kind of try to hold me accountable. Like, if you haven't read at least one piece of fiction or something that has nothing to do with
mhm.
your career or becoming a better therapist or a better person by the next time I've seen you, and I think it's valuable for us to encourage each other in that way.
Yeah, like encourage to engage in the silly shit with your friends. Like I have a friend that like throws a birthday for her cat every year, and I love it. She makes the best charcuterie boards. Like, and that's so like like kind of dumb, but who cares? Like, who cares? And I think like that's the place of like prioritizing it is like keeping the existential dread at bay of like
Mm,
you're going to have to work, you're going to have to pay taxes, you're going to have to pay your bills, you're going to experience death and dying and grief in this life, and you need to find something that like engages a sense of playfulness in you, and it
mm.
is so important. And again, I think as adults, like we lose that. And I've seen plenty of adults engage with it, like Dungeons and Dragons or the Marvel universe or Disney adults, people who are super into Taylor Swift, like stuff that like again that we say like is cringe, but like fuck that. If you just enjoy it, you just enjoy it, and it
Live
doesn't
your life.
matter. Like yeah, just live your life, man. If you want to be a Disney adult, who cares?
Mm, mhm.